No, this is great. I don't think it's going to start just counting.
Don't get me started. You know,
Too soon.
you know that was okay, I'm super upset about it. Too soon.
You need a person to win. I think we talked about
Are you all ready? Let me see if they stand back here. Yeah, wait a minute. So if you stand here, you can probably see it.
Really? Yeah.
And okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go live. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Commander Tina Jones of North Precinct. It is my pleasure today to have a couple of guests to talk about the recent street racing mission that was held on Sunday at our precinct. And I just want to publicly thank Acting Lieutenant Mike Roberts, who has worked for months and months trying to pull this together, both with community partners, working with the mayor's office, city attorney's, district attorney's office, and a lot of other partners, as well as our internal Portland Police Bureau partners as well to make this happen. So so the lineup today we'll start with Mayor Ted Wheeler. We'll follow with Deputy Chief Mike Frome, and then we'll have Acting Lieutenant Mike Roberts. And then we'll open it up for a few questions specific to the speed racing missions. Thank you. Mayor Wheeler.
Mayor, we're going to have you closer to the mics, too.
Yep.
Right here?
Just give them 1 second.
Sure. Yeah, take your time.
God, am I doing this wrong?
All right. Is this close enough? Is this about right? Well, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on what is clearly shaping up to be a very Portland day. Public safety remains a key priority for my administration, which requires us to take an holistic approach to identifying, assessing, and addressing issues that threaten the safety and the well-being of Portlanders. Portlanders across this city have been deeply impacted by these street takeover events. Participants in these events have abused public spaces, including highways and bridges, to engage in exhibitions of either speed or what's called street sliding. These illegal and dangerous acts put both participants as well as the bystanders at significant risk. These events obstruct access for community members and emergency vehicles who seek the appropriate use of our public right-of-ways. Given the increased frequency of these events and the detrimental impact to both pedestrians as well as other vehicles, I brought an emergency ordinance to City Council on the 18th of August of this year to make street racing as well as sliding a misdemeanor offense. Those found in violation of this new ordinance, whether they are facilitating or actively participating in a street takeover, face a jail sentence of up to 30 days, a $500 fine, and may have the vehicle involved towed. These three sanctions are assessed in addition to criminal charges or violations applicable under existing Oregon law. In partnership with the Oregon State Police and the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, we conducted our first enforcement mission in North Portland just this last Sunday. I'm happy to report that the mission was a resounding success. Law enforcement officers made over a dozen arrests. They towed 7 cars. They made multiple citations, and they recovered 2 firearms from the scene. I want to thank Chief Lavelle and all members of the Portland Police Bureau for leading this effort, as well as our law enforcement partners from Multnomah County and the Oregon State Police. And I cannot underscore enough the importance of the partnership here with other jurisdictional partners. And I want to thank the sergeant, who will speak in a moment, and Deputy Chief Fromm, who will also speak, for their good work in helping to facilitate those partnerships and make sure that they're productive. Your continued leadership and your collaboration on these missions in the coming months will allow us to hold those engaging in these dangerous acts both accountable, as well as make our streets safer all across the city of Portland. These successes emphasize the impact and thoughtful investment and the collaboration among different law enforcement agencies. I'm going to continue to champion all of these efforts. I'm going to continue to push for sanctions, and I'm going to continue to support financially the Portland Police Bureau as they engage in these important activities to make our streets safer for everyone. Thank you very much. Deputy Chief Mike Fromm.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Deputy Chief Mike Fromm, F-R-O-M-E. I'm here not to say much other than a lot of thank yous. First off, we need to thank the officers and command staff here at North Precinct for taking it upon themselves to come up with this plan to address speed racing. I want to thank Acting Lieutenant Mike Roberts specifically for his tenaciousness and sticking to this from concept to finish. It was fantastic, and I appreciate it, and the citizens of Portland appreciate it. I want to thank Mayor Wheeler and City Council for giving us the legal tools that we need in order to address this issue. Right? Finally, I want to thank our partners at Multnomah County Sheriff's Office and the Oregon State Police. I think everyone's getting tired of the Portland Police Bureau constantly saying, we just don't have staffing for that. We just don't have staffing for that. Well, you know what? There's a way to take care of that, and it's to ask people for help. And so moving forward in the future, we are going to be asking for help. And when we can help them back, we will we'll return in kind. So those are my thank yous for today. And we are not one and done. We are committing to continue missions to address this behavior and hopefully make Portland a place that people do not want to come and engage in sliding and this type of car shows. So thank you.
Hey folks, I don't have anything prepared. I'm here to answer questions. If you have any, I am more than happy. I'll ask we stay to the topic of these missions and speed racing and this ordinance.
So we've talked to people in the past who live at least in Northeast and experience street racing, and they say, you know, we don't even want to call the police because they won't show up if they see it on the streets. So with this new ordinance, should people start calling the police now? Is there going to be any change, or should people feel more comfortable that officers will respond if something's happening in their neighborhood?
It's a valid question, and I don't have a great answer for you. What I'll always say is, when there is crime, when there is something that needs police attention, call the police. We have as many resources as we have, and we understand we're stretched pretty thin. We will send resources to what we can and address behavior when we are able to. Primarily when we're working on street racing, a lot of it's going to be us coming ahead with a plan so that we have the appropriate number of officers to address the situation. As you all know, these events are enormous sometimes. We have thousands of cars, thousands of participants, and we're not talking about thousands of police that are able to respond. So tactics are important, and we will continue to develop our tactics and respond to what we're seeing. The big win here would be us changing the behavior, us finally connecting with the community members that refuse to behave in the way that the rest of us have developed the expectation for.
And a follow-up on that, what happened I guess Sunday with the arrest. If you can you explain to me how police, OSP, the Sheriff's Office went about making these arrests? Is there some intel you guys get beforehand? And then create this mission, you go ahead and make these arrests? How exactly does it work?
I have a group of investigators, and we are constantly looking for intelligence, and a lot of it is just responding to where the behavior is occurring. So I don't have, every situation is unique, and we are willing to respond to the uniqueness of the situation.
Can you describe how this came down? How many officers did you have? Did you surround them? I mean, I haven't gotten a clear picture of how it happened.
It was a long night, and each stop that we did was unique, right? And so if it takes 2 officers to do a stop, then that's what we do, and if it takes 5, then that's what it takes. It wasn't a giant posse running in and surrounding an individual with 30 cars, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering if it was during the street race, or were you waiting for them to take off, and were you, I mean, I haven't heard a clear
Sure.
description of how you made all these arrests.
Yeah, if you're asking for tactics, we're not going to talk about tactics today, but I can tell you we respond to individual situations where people are exhibiting this behavior that is encompassed in several of the Oregon state laws as well as the new city ordinance, and we address the behavior. So we're willing to find probable cause for each individual and not just throw out a wide net where everyone is impacted.
Some of these
Yes.
events where there are thousands of people, we see them take over whole intersections, and in the past, officers have said, 3 of us can't handle thousands of people. What will that look like? How will that be different moving forward when we do see these events of 1%?
Yep, great question. We have some tools, and the new tool is this ordinance that gives us the ability to have a little bit more of an aggressive stance. We're still limited in our resources, so when we have the resources, we will address the behavior, and when we don't have the resources, we'll try to do our best to communicate what's going on and how the community can stay safe from the behavior. But let there be no confusion, this is unsafe behavior that is affecting everyone around us, and when we're putting out our thanks, my big thanks is the tolerance that the city of Portland has had for 30 years of this kind of behavior, where we have been unsuccessful at addressing, or at least curbing the behavior. So our goal is to have an effect and continue to put our effort, and the city is committed to putting the money towards it, and so that is what the goal will be.
Given the fact that there was still a street racing event of this scale a month after the city passed this ordinance, do you think this is doing enough to deter people from this activity?
This was the first mission that I had planned. I wanted to make sure that we were able to do things appropriately with the right numbers, but more than that, we wanted to have all of our pieces in place. So the behavior leading up to this moment is just behavior. We're going to be reactive the best we can. I think once we start getting the message out, and I appreciate all of you media partners putting this information out there, it's really important, and hopefully that'll impact some of the behavior. It's a partnership. We're all working together on this, so yes.
Yeah, this kind of idea of street racing has kind of become almost a cultural thing in Portland. It's obviously a big thing. These kind of smaller stops, stuff like that, do you feel like it's going to be enough to curb this? Like you said, it's been 30 years of this. Is it going to be enough, or are you working on some other things, like other outlets for people to express themselves, with vehicles? How do you expect to curb it?
It's interesting, and I'm working across lines with many other agencies that are also involved in trying to address this behavior. There is a cultural element to it, and the culture is the car enthusiast culture, and there are safe ways to do that and safe places to do that. In the past, we've tried to develop strategies like offering PIR as a place where people can go and do Friday night race nights, and we put this out to the community, and unfortunately, what the street racing community is doing that is not working for those events is the drifting. And the drifting in itself is not only unsafe because you're driving a car in an uncontrolled method, but there's no way to do that without destroying the racetrack itself or the ground that you're doing it on. And so there's more impact than just the driving behavior. It impacts the actual infrastructure that you're doing it on. Yes, I am reaching out to some of the organizers. We're working on strategies to try to effectively change the behavior, and if we can find a safe way to do that for people, that's wonderful. The problem is there's no safe way to do that when you're taking over a city intersection. There's no safe way to do that when you're driving through the blocks and crashing into a telephone pole. There's just no safe way to do that when you're stopping traffic from moving over a bridge that might need medical attention. Does that make sense? Yes.
Another question is, why now address this issue when it comes to, and how would you hope to balance this street racing and then the other rising crime, say, like gun violence? You know, this bureau has been kind of taking on a lot of different issues, a rise in mental health calls, a rise in street racing. How are you going to balance all these things, and why now?
We're not going to balance things. We're going to address behavior in the city. What I have been tasked with is addressing the street racing behavior, and so that is what I'm working on, and there are other people that have been tasked with other things. I mean, it's a community, and it's a community approach, so everything intersects. When we're talking about people who are deliberately taking over intersections and preventing traffic from moving, when we're talking about people who are driving their cars in such a way that it puts other members of the community at risk, it's a big deal for us. So right now, that is my mission, and that is what I personally am working on, but I'm just one representative of this organization. I think the solution would be to get a whole bunch more cops involved, and if we're able to do that, then we're able to address more of the behavior.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to, if I can, add a couple other highlights. Our folks did recover 2 firearms out of only 7 vehicles that were towed. So if you look at that percentage-wise, that's a, high percentage of firearms. We've had events across the city in the past where people have used firearms in a variety of manners. So going back to, it takes a lot of resources on our end because there's a high threshold for safety that we need to have happen. So I want to highlight that piece. I'm really tremendously proud of my team and our partners for doing this mission and all the work that led up to it. We have a lot of public safety issues that we're balancing, and we're doing what we can to address calls for service, also some livability issues, obviously the gun violence and the street racing as well. So I appreciate our media partners for helping us to get that information out to the public. Obviously, we'd love to deter it and not have to arrest, tow, cite anybody. I know I've heard of at least one parent who's pretty upset that their vehicle is an impound because their child or young adult decided to take it out. So I encourage parents to get involved as well because these are realities. If we're enforcing these things, we are going to have vehicles in impound. People will be arrested. We do have a lot of younger people engaged in this. We'd rather not arrest them and take them to jail. And also, have them be charged with things like reckless endangerment and things that would lead to high fines or their license suspended. And that's part of the city code also is a diversion program because we want it to be an opportunity for people to learn from their mistakes. But we'd rather them not be engaged from the front end. So I thank you all for your time. I know your time is tight as well. So thanks for coming out and hanging in with us in the rain too. Have a good day.